We are checking out Batman Arkham Shadow VR, a bold step that has its highs and lows. If you've ever wanted to truly immerse yourself in Gotham City and see through the eyes of Batman, this game aims to fulfill that fantasy. But is it enough? Let's break it down. The first thing that stands out is the atmosphere. Right off the bat, you're dropped into the sewers of Gotham, and the environment is dripping with tension, quite literally. Dim lighting, the constant drip of water, the sound of unseen critters scurrying about. It all feels alive. Camouflage utilized Meta's new acoustic ray tracing, which makes the audio feel more three-dimensional. You don't just see Gotham's underbelly, you hear and feel it too. Graphically, the game is impressive for VR, but there are hiccups. Real-time shadows add depth, especially when you see Batman's cape casting dark, imposing shapes around enemy. It's a neat feature that makes you feel like the terror of Gotham. However, certain textures feel flat and low-res, breaking the immersion when you leave the sewers. The bat signal, for example, looks awkwardly pasted onto the skyline, almost like a last-minute thought. The scaling is also off in some areas, like the tight sewer tunnels or open street scene. Not game-breaking, but noticeable. When it comes to gameplay, Arkham Shadow will feel familiar to fans of the Arkham series, though slower and more deliberate due to the VR mechanics. Movement and actions that were once a simple button press now require more physical effort. Gliding, for instance, means raising your arms just right, and throwing a batarang requires reaching for it, aiming and tossing. It's more immersive, but it also slows things down, and at times breaks the flow. Combat is where things get interesting, and also where some frustrations arise. The classic Arkham combat system is here, building combos, using gadgets, and flowing from enemy to enemy. But in VR, the experience is different. You're physically moving, throwing punches, and grabbing enemies for finishing moves. It's immersive, but not always smooth. When the system works, it feels great, but the timing can be tricky. There's also the fact that you're limited to a 100-degree field of view, which makes you feel more vulnerable during big fights. Failing to dodge or time your attacks right feels more punishing, and the usual combat flow feels less fluid. Stealth sections have their moments, but Arkham Shadow doesn't go as far as other VR stealth games. If you're expecting Dishonored-level creativity in your approach, you might be disappointed. Batman's stealth feels pretty straightforward here. Sneak around, use gadgets, take down enemy, but it lacks the variety that makes other first-person stealth titles shine. Hopefully, there will be more post-campaign content like Predator challenge maps to really test your skills and keep the replayability alive. Detective mode makes a return, activated with a simple tap to the temple. This VR version feels natural and works well, giving you a holographic view of enemies and clues. It's simple, but effective. As for gadgets, you'll unlock more as you progress through the game, each adding a bit more to the experience. The demo only gave a glimpse of this, but there's potential for more satisfying gameplay as you collect tools like the gel launcher or shock gloves. One area where Arkham Shadow diverges from past Arkham games is exploration. Unlike the open world, free roaming design of Arkham City or Night, Arkham Shadow feels more linear and on rails. You won't be grappling across entire districts of Gotham. Instead, you're confined to specific rooftops and streets. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, as it allows the developers to focus on crafting more detailed, curated environments, but it might leave players wanting more freedom. It's more in line with Arkham Asylum than the larger-scale sequels. The narrative holds up well, and the voice acting is top-notch. Roger Craig Smith returns as a younger Bruce Wayne, and the supporting cast does a great job of making the world feel lived in. Alfred's presence is more than just a voice in your ear. He's a vital part of the story and helps deepen the immersion. Other characters like Jim Gordon and a mysterious new villain keep the plot engaging, though it's hard to gauge the full extent of the story from just the demo. Where Arkham Shadow really suffers is in its pacing. The VR mechanics, while immersive, often slow things down to a crawl. Combat feels a bit too scripted and stiff, and the stealth mechanics lack depth. Exploration is limited, and the linear level design doesn't do much to shake things up. If you're looking for the fast-paced, fluid action of the previous Arkham games, this VR iteration may feel more like a step back. In terms of content, Arkham Shadow does offer a lot. Gadgets to unlock, puzzles to solve, and plenty of collectibles scattered throughout the world. These will give completionists something to sink their teeth into, though the game's more contained environment means you won't get the sprawling, open-world feel of its predecessors. So, is Batman Arkham Shadow worth playing? The VR immersion is impressive, but the slow pacing, limited exploration, and occasionally clunky combat hold it back. If you're a hardcore Batman fan or looking for a VR experience that's more narrative-driven, it could be worth your time. But for those expecting the open-world action of past Arkham games, this one might feel a bit too restrained. If you're a fan of Batman and want to revisit the origins of his video game legacy, check out our review of the Batman Arkham trilogy. Hit the link and see if they're still worth playing.